Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It is an honor to stand here before you today as we come together to recognize and celebrate Black History Month. Each year, this month gives us the opportunity to reflect on the rich history, sacrifices, and contributions of African Americans in every sector of our society. This year's theme, African Americans in Labor, is a powerful reminder of the strength, resilience, and unwavering dedication of African Americans while shaping the workforce, building industries, and serving our nation, often in the face of immense adversity. Here at the Department of Veterans Affairs, we take special pride in recognizing the contributions of African Americans who have not only served in our armed forces, but have also continued their legacy of leadership and service in the civilian workforce. From battlefield heroes to trailblazers in the government and advocacy, their labor has paved the way for generations to follow. As we begin today's program, I want to thank each of you, whether you're joining us in person here or virtually, for taking the time to engage in this very important discussion. Together, we will hear from distinguished speakers who embody the very spirit of service and perseverance. At this time, I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Linda Davis, Chief Veterans Experience Officer and Acting Director for the Center for Women Veterans.
Thank you all. What a privilege it is to be here and to celebrate this special day with everyone. It's my honor to return to VA as a veteran and as a veteran's mother, a veteran's caregiver, and a veteran survivor. And in each of those roles, I was honored to work and walk side by side with fellows who were African American and have consistently taught me the most important things that I needed to know at any point in time, both personally and professionally. I'm honored to work closely with the Center for Minority Veterans and for everyone who is here today and out across the country watching this. It is a privilege to be with you, and thank you for your ways in which you continue to serve us all. God bless.
At this time, I would like to welcome the Center for Minority Veterans Acting Director, Ms. Deborah Walker.
Good morning, good afternoon, and thank you, Carmen, for that very warm introduction. Again, my name is Deborah Walker, Acting Director, Center for Minority Veterans. It is truly a privilege to be here today as we honor Black History Month and recognize the critical roles that African Americans have played in shaping our nation's workforce, particularly in the military and at the Department of Veterans Affairs. From the Tuskegee Airmen to the Montford Point Marines, from the 6th 888 Battalion to today's African American service members and veterans. Our community has shown resilience, excellence, and unwavering service and dedication. We also know that the labor of African Americans has not always been met with fair recognition or equal opportunities. That is why we're here today, to take this opportunity to reflect on the past and continue to work on ensuring that every veteran receives the support, respect, and the services they have earned, and that includes their families, caregivers, and survivors. The Center for Minority Veterans and the Center for Women Veterans, we are committed to breaking down barriers, advocating, and ensuring that the voices of all veterans are heard and valued. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from incredible individuals who have dedicated their lives to service and advocacy. I encourage each of you to sit back, listen, engage, and carry forth the lessons and information that is being shared here today. Thank you all for being here in person and across the nation for this program, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Walker, for your encouraging opening remarks. At this time, we will begin our program with the singing of the national anthem. Performing for us today is Ms. Michelle Terry, the Outreach Program Manager for the Center for Women Veterans. Ms. Terry is a dedicated advocate for women veterans, ensuring they receive the benefits, resources, and recognition they deserve. Please stand and join us as we honor our nation.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and the bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets ring clear, the bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner wave? Oh, the land of the free and the home of the brave, the
Wow, thank you, Michelle, for sharing your beautiful voice with us. You all can be seated. Our keynote speaker for today is Les Burke, Chief Warrant Officer for Navy Retired. CWO for Burke was the 8th African American to complete the Navy School for Deep Sea Diving and Salvage in Little Creek, VA, Virginia. Famed U.S. Navy master diver Carl Bashir mentored Les in the early years as one of the Navy's elite salvage divers. Les took part in many salvage operations throughout the world. Les spent 33 years in the Navy, 28 of those on station as a Navy diver. Les joined the faculty and staff of the University of Maryland College Park in January of 2013 as the dive safety officer. He immediately began building the research diving program back up to the stature indicative of Maryland's flagship land grant Sea Grant institution. Now, this included standing up an early entry-level diving program, which had been shut down at College Park for 10 years. He was the diving safety officer for the entire Maryland system. This included, of course, University of Maryland College Park, Eastern Shore, Horn Point, Solomon Island. After reflecting on his one-on-one conversation with Jacques Cousteau, Les knew he was supposed to be exposing and assisting underprivileged youth to understand aquatic stewardship. He left Maryland after 5 full years to return to Florida. In doing so, he went full-time into junior scientist in the sea. Les is a board member of the Florida Keys Marine Preservation Society, the Caribbean Center for Boys and Girls of the Virgin Islands, the Marine Research and Development Foundation, and the Miami Reef Initiative. He holds multiple degrees, including a Juris Doctorate from both Florida State University. He has completed multiple courseworks and Masters in Public Administration. He is a Department of State ICAS executive, a certified mentor, state certified law enforcement officer, and a certified curriculum developer, in addition to being a certified master scuba instructor. It is with great honor that I get the opportunity to welcome CW4 Les Burke.
Thank you so much. I didn't realize it was all that. That's what life's about. I do want to apologize. I notice everyone is wearing shirt and ties, but folks, remember, I'm retired. I also heard something today that made me think back, because in addition to being a veteran, I am also a veteran father and a veteran grandfather. And it is truly an honor to do those things and to be here. So, let's take a look at what we did and how we did it and how we got here. Let's see if I can make the system share properly. Okay. So if you guys remember, there was a movie made back in 2001 called Men of Honor. That movie was about master diver Carl Frasier. Carl Frasier was the first African-American to complete the Navy's deep sea salvage school. He was also the first African-American master diver, and even more importantly to me, he was the first person, period, that was a full amputee to return to full active duty without missing a beat. It's very interesting, all of the things that Carl did. He actually prepped himself and worked hard. And as we're talking about this, you might notice Carl's prosthetic leg there. He had an accident in which he saved a sailor's life, but it cost him his leg. He decided that he could do the job just as well. And he worked and worked and worked, doing all the things and showing everyone that he can do that job. And I want you please to remember that leg. You'll see that leg again. So I met Carl when I was going through second class school, which was the entry level for the Navy's salvage program. This is a photo of me that was taken in 1981, getting ready to dive in the Mark V, which is 190 pounds, not me and the equipment alone, 190 pounds. The Navy actually stopped using that piece of equipment back in 1984, but that was the mainstay of Navy diving for most of the salvage work that was done from 1916 or so all the way up through 1984. There were certain lightweight rigs that we used for small jobs, but that was what we dove with, and that was just the way it is. You had to master it, and you had to do it. What was interesting is between Carl's graduation and becoming the first African-American to finish that program and me graduating and becoming the 8th was 27 years. That means only 6 other African-Americans had completed that program in 27 years. I can tell you that a lot of the things that were in that movie, the things that he had to endure, the workplace treatment that, of course, would never be allowed today, those things still continued. It was not easy. The program was hard enough as it was. The program was designed, especially in the first 2 or 3 weeks, to wash you out. Not just me as an African American, but anyone. But I found in the first couple of weeks, I was in solitude, with the exception of Master Diver Frasier, who was now retired and interestingly lived about 2 miles from the schoolhouse. He continually showed up, and he continually gave me a message. And that message was, don't let them take your dream. And so I didn't let them take my dream. I continued. and I stayed and I got better. What was more or less routine for everyone else, I always had to be the best, which was kind of aggravating at times when you knew that you were operating head and shoulders above everyone else, but someone that was doing or operating at a mediocre level was standing right beside you the whole time, and you were seen as equal. It bothered me to a degree, but I realized that internally, what was happening is it was making me better. It was giving me the drive to be the best. And later in my career, that was recognized. And there are a few other things that, when you're young, you don't get it. It comes back to you as you continue on. But being in that equipment, being underwater, doing that work, whether it was cutting and welding well, didn't do much welding. Most of it was cutting. And pulling things out and try to get things open and get people or equipment out, that was all part of the job. One of the things that we did is when an aircraft fell into the ocean, or in this particular case, the Chesapeake Bay, we had to find it. And not only find it, but we had to recover it. In one particular situation, not this one, a T-38 exploded at 12,000 feet without warning. The Navy grounded every one of the aircraft in the entire fleet until we recovered every piece of that aircraft. They were able to put it back together and determine what went wrong. And if you don't think that's hard, imagine working around the clock, because we just had to get it done in 90 to 100 feet of water all day, all night. So zero visibility. If you can just imagine closing your eyes and trying to work. Everything was done by feel, especially at night, but we got the job done. What usually happened is they would take a warehouse and put all the pieces in there and just like a puzzle, and put the aircraft back together. So this particular aircraft did not have a pilot in it, but I was a part of another situation. Just recently, as you folks know, there was two aircrafts, an Army helicopter that crashed to get with a American Airlines jet over the Potomac River, right outside of, right over the DCA, Ronald Reagan Airport. Well, interesting enough, 42 years later, almost to the week, not later, earlier, was another crash, the Florida 90. They didn't de-ice it properly. It crashed into the 14th Street Bridge. Interestingly, again, not everyone perished in this flight. There were several survivors, but there were also many, many casualties, including infant children. As you can see in this photo, we literally had to break ice. That's how cold it was to get in, pull out the pieces, pull out the bodies. What the Navy did and still does is they worked this in rotation so that no one individual was there too long, but you still did 30 days. 30 days of going down every day and knowing you're gonna freeze your butt off. But we had to, again, find every piece of this equipment and salvage it and bring it back. And we had to find all of those passengers that were on that flight to give closure to their families. If you look at this photo, you will notice that, sure, it kind of looks like an airplane, but wait a minute, the front of it is too close to where the wings start to spread out. That's because this is the shuttle Columbia. I was also on that job. That aircraft, as you recall, exploded upon re-entry with all of the astronauts on board. Most of it fell into the water in a lake in Texas called Toledo Bend. Again, in this case, it was NASA, not the Navy, wanted every single piece of that aircraft. We did find a lot of it on land, but most of it was in the water. Toledo Bend is a recreational lake that is a lot of water skiers, a lot of fishermen and boaters and things like that. So you can imagine over the years, there was a lot of junk that was in that lake. We were using magnetometers, so anything that pinged, we had to recover. So there were boat engines, there were wheel hubs, just about anything that you can imagine. Some of the things used as anchors. Okay, I don't have an anchor, but I've got this old tire here, so I'm just gonna tie a line through it and throw it over the side. Well, we found those things too. And it was in February. If you remember, this accident happened February 1st, 2003. So again, the water, even in Texas at that time of year, was cold. But it was the job. It was the excitement of the job. It was the thing that I was doing that made me and all of those around me special. Sometimes the job was even worse. This particular photo was in Minneapolis when the bridge collapsed and 22 cars went into the water. As you can see from the color of the water, there was, again, zero visibility. I will say that most of my time diving in the Navy, we worked in zero visibility. There were other moments, but without exaggeration, I say that with all the diving that I did, I probably spent 4 years underwater before I ever saw a fish. They were probably there, you just couldn't see them. I had long since retired when this happened, but this was when the submarine, U.S. submarine, hit the Japanese ship. It was an educational ship and sank off the coast of Hawaii. So these guys, as you can see, there's plenty of visibility. This dive was very, very deep, but that was the least that the Navy could do, was go ahead and put divers down and recover the bodies and everything else that was on that ship. Again, another horrific situation, and there were many of them over the years. If you think back, the TWA 800 that crashed off of Long Island, and just about most of the air crashes, except for the ones lately. Who ever heard of planes flipping over on the runway? But, you know, those kind of things happen. But getting back to this, it was hard work, but it was work that not everyone could do. So it gave us that level of being special. People always confuse us with SEALs. They're like, oh, you a SEAL? And I'm like, no, a SEAL would be lucky to do what I do. This is a SEAL that's locking out of a submarine. If you look at the top of this photo, you can actually see the top, the water, the air, okay? So he's not deep. SEALs don't dive deep. Their mission is totally different. A salvage diver can dive down to 1,000 feet and recover whatever needs to be recovered, including a submarine if something were to go wrong. And that all happened and began with the Squalus and a few of the other submarines that sank back in the day. And that's kind of where the Navy diving program became important. And then, of course, during World War II, actually in January of 1942, after the attack of Pearl Harbor, was where the Navy diving really hit its stride. And all of that work was done in the Mark V. So I know you're wondering why, how, you know, what caused this? Well, this is called Frasier again in later life. And while he was a catalyst in making sure I got through this program, he wasn't really what made me think about doing that. That honor, believe it or not, goes to two other people. You can think about this. Back in the day when I was growing up, I'm 70 years old, we had 3 television channels. And so we didn't have a lot to watch. We didn't have MTV and all of those other programs. Not that I would have minded, because I would have watched Disney anyway. What Walt Disney taught me was to use my imagination, to realize that I can do anything that I wanted to do. I just needed to strive for it. And seeing all of the places in the world that the Musketeers went to made me want to do those things also. But where I am now and the road that I took, that credit belongs to Captain Jacques-Yves Cousteau. I met Cousteau in the airport when I was coming back from a dive job. I was already a Navy diver. I was coming back from Italy, and he was in the international terminal in New York at JFK, and he was going to France. No one recognized him, which I was amazed. I kept looking at him. People were walking back and forth, and I was like, that has to be him. He was holding a newspaper while he was reading. I walked up and I said, you're Jacques Cousteau. And he just said, that's right. Newspaper never went down. And so I talked and tried to make small talk. Newspaper never went down. As soon as I said to him that I was a Navy diver, the newspaper went down. And we had a conversation after that lasted about 45 minutes. At the end of that conversation, he made me promise to share my love of the ocean and of diving. At that time in my life, I didn't get it. I didn't understand what the captain was expecting of me. Later on, it came to me, and I realized that I had big shoes to fill. These are deep sea diving boots. These are actually lightweight diving boots, which weigh 15 pounds each. So those shoes together are 30 pounds. The regular leather shoes are 17 and a half pounds each for 35 pounds. And if you're wearing a mixed gas Mark V setup, those shoes are 35 pounds each for 70 pounds. Obviously, they want you to keep your feet on the ground, more or less to keep you grounded. My head was always in the sky anyway, so I needed shoes that heavy to keep me down. But what it did do is it caused me to reach out. It made me understand that I had an understanding, I had a skill set that should be shared. I could see around me while I was in the service at any given time with two exceptions. I was the only black person there. After a while, I had to ask myself why. And then I thought, okay, there are a lot of people that are marginalized, and there are a lot of people who just don't have the opportunity. So I took that as my mission. In 2005, I created Junior Scientists in the Sea. And there are actually kids in this photo that joined my organization and are still part of it. And this photo was taken, I think, in 2013. There are kids that were in the ninth grade, 14 years old or so, that are now graduated from college, have families, and still call me and say, Mr. Les, what's up today? You look on the table there, you'll see the diving equipment that I use to teach them, and I also used in the Navy. With 2 or 3 exceptions, everything on that table personally belonged to me that I collected over the years. And I kind of went around and made a tour and invited kids to join this program. Come and hang out with me instead of hanging out on the corner. Look at the things that we're going to do. Look at the fun that we can have instead of wondering what are you going to do next. Well, it wasn't long before I realized that there were adults that wanted to hear that same message. I was invited to come and speak at the Pentagon. This particular photograph was taken at the Pentagon. If you look in the lower corner there, you'll see a blue thing there that says Men of Honor. That particular thing actually hangs on my wall right now. I don't know if you can see the date, but it says February 12th, and this was taken in 2012. And so there's the same equipment on that table, but instead of talking to kids, the audience is full of Pentagon workers, including senior naval officers. There were at least 2 3-star admirals in that room. We did a screening of the movie Men of Honor, then they brought me back to explain all the things that were in it and what it meant and how those things had changed, if they did. And that was one of the interesting things that came out of this conversation, that there were a lot of things that went on back then that were still going on now. I mentioned that you'd see that leg again. If you look behind me in this photograph, there it is. You might ask, what the heck are you doing with Carl Bashir's leg? Well, I actually didn't have it. His son did. That's Philip Bashir, who also came and talked to the audience about life with his father. And he explained to us how many times he had to pull that foot connected to that leg out of his butt. But as you can see, he grew to be, he's a helicopter pilot. He's actually retired now. But he spoke of the strength that his father instilled in him, and that same message, never let them take your dream. So I took that message. As you can see, this photo is the Mark V. That's an actual operational Mark V. You can tell if you look and see that I have gray hair that this is a relatively new photo. This photo was taken as part of a news article or a magazine article that was done on me as being one of the leaders as far as people of color in the Navy diving community. But I took that and I harnessed it and I tried to bring it forward to something that was important today. And you see me looking at a piece of coral. I put that piece of coral there 18 months before. It started out as a little fingerling about the size of my finger, and when I planted it there 18 months earlier than this photo was taken, it was about the size of my hand. And what that was about was coral restoration. At that point, I realized that not only can I teach kids to scuba dive, but I could get them involved in some kind of ecological project that was meaningful, that was real. And I didn't realize that other people had noticed what I was doing. And so if you know your history of the U.S., you know that that's John Ellis Bush, Jeb. When they say Jeb Bush, is actually redundant. The B is actually the Bush. But I was awarded, I was recognized and listed in Who's Who in drug and delinquency prevention in the state of Florida. Wasn't what my intention was. My intention was to expose marginalized and underprivileged kids to diving. But as a byproduct, that's what happened. Kids who came and hung out with me instead of getting in trouble. And quite frankly, I was just doing what I did best and doing what I love doing, and it translated into a message that these kids grabbed onto and they kept. So that program is Junior Scientists in the Sea. And it really centered around coral restoration. It is so much more now. We do marine archaeology. We're diving in full face mask. We're actually live streaming from the water column. But it started out very simple. It was an educational program with physical activity. We were giving the kids responsibility. We were making them accountable, and then we were having fun. Later on, the prevention and intervention aspect appeared, but it wasn't intentional. That wasn't what we meant to do. And then we had all of these partners. Everyone wanted to be a part of what we're doing. You see Guy Harvey up there, and the Reef, and Dan, and several of the certification agencies. But to me, the important thing was we were taking kids that would have never had the opportunity to learn how to scuba dive. We were giving them face-to-face instruction. We were teaching them about physiology, about physics, about equipment. We dove in the pool, and then we took them out into open water. What was really cool was the kinesiology aspect of it. Moving, okay? Get off that couch, put that Game Boy thing away, and let's do something. Let's be active. And guess what? They came. You heard that story, if you build it, they will come. Well, they came. And the program still continues to grow and continues to strive. In retirement, I'm probably just as busy as I was when I was on active duty or getting ready to retire. This is actually Jason's 20th year. And so we will be making dives on the beach, but more importantly, we will be doing things with these kids that will, again, keep them energized. After 20 years, I have to laugh at this picture. That young man in the lower corner there turning around looking at you is a 12-year-old version of my now 30-year-old youngest. So they stay with it. They stay out of trouble. They go to college. They become something that, not that they wouldn't have the opportunity, but it just shined the light on that road to get there. Some of the things that we did, especially during the winter, living up in Maryland and Northern Virginia, is I made partnerships with the aquarium systems. Okay, so the kids actually got in and vacuumed. I know your mom's there says, I can't get my kids to vacuum at home. But you had to flood their bedroom. Because once you do that, once you put them in scuba gear, they want to vacuum. And clean the inside of glass. How many of you parents can get your kids to clean your windows? Got them to do their windows also. Okay, the added bonus of being able to dive here with fish and everything was being in the water with sharks. Going back and letting your classmates know on a regular basis, I dive with sharks. It also helped them to understand that what Peter Benchley did to sharks in 1975 was a fantasy, okay, was fiction at its best. And sharks are not the mean creatures that the book made them out to be. But after the kids learned that they could have fun in doing this thing, then I actually put them to work. And we went out and we did cleanups. We picked up stuff. Sometimes there were oil slicks. There was garbage. Can you imagine kids taking off their $200 Jordans to put on a set of fins to go in the water and pick up trash and loving it? And that's what was so important, or is so important, about this program. And again, there's 12, 13-year-old CJ, I don't know if you can read that sign, but there were kids on the outside of the aquarium. I just happened to be out there when he wrote that. And what that says, I don't know if you can read it, is you can be next. letting these other kids, and he's always been that ambassador, but letting these other kids know that this is something that you can do. And it worked. It worked tremendously. And so the program began, and this is indicative of what that program looked like. Okay, we had folks, we had African Americans, we had Mexicans, Hispanics, if you please. We had girls, we had boys. All of the people in this photo, believe it or not, are grown and are leading impressive lives. The young lady directly in the middle, that's Lisa. She was the one that was in that photo that I was talking at the time. Her principal brought her to me because she was failing biology and said she has so much promise, but she just can't get a grasp. Lisa is now a nurse, married with a child, living in North Carolina. Pablo there, directly to her side, full ride scholarship based on being not only able to swim, but be able to scuba dive, okay? As a minority person to walk in the door with that skill set. Usually it took a program a year to 2 years to get them that skill set, and these kids then and now walk in the door with that in their hands. It's amazing. All the way on the end, the kid with the wild hair doesn't have that anymore. He is a Maryland State Trooper. The kid directly in the middle, all the way in the back, he's a Marine. I think Rashim is in now 10 years. The last photo I saw of him, he was E6 or E7. Started with me when he was 15, could not go on our first diving trip because he had to work to help support his family. Single mom, 3 other kids in the house. Okay, so regular kids given an opportunity to do something extraordinary. Maybe you want to say ordinary kids doing something extraordinary. That sounds better. Anyway, that's what Junior Scientist in the Sea is. That's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. Basically, what I've been doing is taking our most precious resource, our kids, and engaging them to take care and to protect our most endangered resource. But guess what I also learned about diving? Everyone that I ever knew asked me, Les, why do you spend so much time underwater? And I realized how comfortable it made me feel, how relaxed it made me feel. And then I realized I was self-medicating without even taking any drugs. So I did mention this a couple of times to the VA, and I actually stood up a veterans diving program at Miami-Dade College, and reaching out to anyone specifically, all of the veterans, but anyone that was diagnosed with PTSD, get in the water, feel how relaxed you are, you're weightless, no one's talking to you, all of that pressure that you have from outside, it's gone, okay? You just focus on what you're doing, the beautiful things. I try to put these guys in water that they can see fish and other things, you know, but the reality of it is just having that equipment on and maybe just listening to your bubbles, being weightless has done an immeasurable thing for me, and I know many of them it worked as well. So that's it, folks. I do have to say, as far as the VA is concerned, I have used the VA as a primary healthcare system since 3 years after I retired. I retired in 2008. My first location, I was at Fort Belvoir in Virginia. I had the same doctor for 4 years. Totally amazing. I love the program. I wouldn't go anywhere else. I don't even know what my other medical benefits are because the VA is taking care of me that well. And that's why I'm here. It's a message that I really love to share. So with that, I thank you so much for having me here and listen to me ramble. I hope that you got something out of this, and maybe if nothing else, reach out. I have 20 years of running a youth program. I have 33 years that I spent in uniform. So there's a lot of things that I have in my head. My son has already gone through and retired, and now my grandson is on active duty, all in the Navy. So I think it's our service of our country is important. And I also know that any country that does not take care of its veterans is destined to fail. And that's why this office and this programming is so important. Thank you very much.
Don't let them take your dream. I love that messaging. Mr. Burke, thank you for not only sharing your incredible journey with us today, but also for the lasting impact that your service and mentorship has on the people that you connect with and the youth that you mentor. Your contributions will continue to inspire and uplift future generations. Now, if you see some children with the last name Drummond, they may or may not be mine. I'm just saying. This is a great opportunity for you all to kind of think about ways that we can support our youth, especially those who are dependents of service members. Now it's my honor to introduce Master Sergeant Elizabeth Ann Helm Frazier, U.S. Army retired. Master Sergeant Frazier joined the U.S. Army seeking educational and job opportunities. Over her 25-year military career, she held various assignments and high-profile positions, showcasing her expertise in personnel and career counseling. Some of her military career highlights include U.S. Army TRADOC Career Counselor of the Year, San Antonio's Mentor of the Year, past President of the Northern Virginia Chapter 33, and the Women's Army Corps Volunteer of the Year from Fort Gordon, Georgia. After her retirement in 2006, Elizabeth Helm Frazier has continued to service the military, women, veterans, and community activities. One of her ongoing volunteer commitments is ensuring the legacy of the 688th Postal Battalion, the first and only all-Black, all-female unit to deploy to the European Theater of Operations during World War II. Through her efforts, she helped raise funds to build a monument at Fort Leavenworth to recognize the 688's exemplary service to World War II. Additionally, she served as a producer of the critically acclaimed documentary No Mail, Low Morale, which tells the 688 Postal Directory Battalion story. Please join me in welcoming Master Sergeant Elizabeth Helm Frazier.
I gotta tell you, she didn't mention one of the most important things, and that is the fact that I am from Florida. So Chief Burke, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you do for all of the kids, and most of all, thank you, as we say in the military, homeboy, we thank you. Thank you to the Center of Minority Veterans, and thank you to the Center of Women Veterans for inviting me to come and talk about my favorite subject, these amazing women of the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion. My name is Elizabeth Ann Helm Frazier, Master Sergeant, U.S. Army, retired, 6888 supporter. I spent 25 years, 10 months on active duty, and mail was always important to receive. The 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion, nicknamed 6888, mail, no mail, low morale was their motto. So have you ever seen these photos? I will tell you that the bottom photo that Major Adams is inspecting the troops is the photo that I always saw when I was on active duty. It was about like a 4x5, real little wallet-sized one. And for about 10 years, I walked around saying, oh, that's the unit that I want to be in, because those women looked like me. And it wasn't until about 1991, yeah, I'm telling my age here, I'm standing there, it was Black History Month, and I was like, okay, well, where's the photo? And there it was, down there at the bottom. And I was like, oh, there go the photo. And I was like, that's the unit that I want to be in. And this guy said to me very calmly, you know, I think that's a World War II unit. I'm pretty sure. And I'm like, really? So I went to a military book looking through it, didn't know what I was looking for, but I saw the picture. And all it said was, black commander inspecting black wax. The 6888 Central Postal Battalion was a battalion-sized element. It was commanded by Major Charity Adams. The battalion XO was Captain Avenel Campbell. There was the headquarters company, and then the company A, B, C, and D were the postal units. The monument is located at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, in Buffalo Soldier Park, called the Park of First. In that park, there are other significant African Americans who have made contributions to our history. Lieutenant Henry Flipper, General Robinson. Brigadier General Grissom was the only white commander of the 9th and 10th Buffalo Regiment. The late General Colin Powell, the 555th All-Black Parachute Unit, the Buffalo Horse and Rider, and as you can see in the corner there, the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion. So we say the men are in good company now. I want to also mention there is another monument that's not here in the Park of First. It is actually in the city of Leavenworth, Kansas, and it is the bust of William Cathy. William Cathy is actually Cathy William. She is the only known female to serve as a Buffalo soldier. It took them about 2 years to realize that she was a woman after she was injured and had an exam, and then they immediately kicked her out. But her bust is there in Leavenworth. This is November 30th of 2018. The top photo, you see 5 women sitting. Those are the 5 women that attended the monument dedication there at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. You see the front of the monument, and you see the back of the monument. The back of the monument, by state in alphabetical order, lists the women of the 6888. This is the moment. That photo was taken on November 29th there, after we had taken down those 5 women to get a pre-look at the monument. And that is me touching the bust of Charity Adams, just to say thank you and that it was real. The photographer that took that photo works for the Fort Leavenworth newspaper. And so I told her when she asked me, what was I thinking? And I said, that was my moment. The 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion was not the only women serving in World War II. They were not the only black women serving in World War II. There was a 10% limit on women, black women, to be recruited to come into World War II. There were over 6,500 African American women who served in World War II. What makes the 6888 different is that they were the only predominantly African American battalion-sized unit to serve in World War II. That is the distinct difference. They had 2 very powerful advocates at the time. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. These were the advocates. Before it was the Women's Army Corps, it was actually the Women Army Auxiliary Corps. They did not have military status, so they were like volunteers. It was at the urgent of these 2 women, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt and Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, that on July 1st, 1943, President Roosevelt signed into law the U.S. Army Women's Army Corps law. This gave all women serving on active duty in World War II the same rights as their male counterparts. When the 688 got ready to go overseas, they went on these two ships. The first group went on the Ile-de-France. The second group went on the Queen Elizabeth. The Ile-de-France was the ship that several of the 688 members that I got to know actually was on. It was left out of the New York harbor, headed over to England, but in the middle of the Atlantic, German U-boats and torpedoes threatened the ship, and so therefore it had to be diverted to Scotland. Where was all of this mail going? Nowhere. It was going overseas to Birmingham, England, and to France, and they were just putting it in warehouses because they could not keep up with the demand. There were units trying to process the mail and just could not keep up with it. And so, because service members started complaining that I'm not getting no mail, and if you are a veteran, you know not getting mail was very important, especially if you had a bad day. Mail brighten your day. And don't let somebody get a box. It was everybody's box. I'm just telling you, okay? And so the adjutant general complained to leadership and said, we got to do something about this. Excuse me. So what did they do? They assigned the 688 to redirect, reduce this backlog of over 2 years. These were warehouses in Birmingham, England, aircraft hangars. Imagine an aircraft hangar, floor to the ceiling, stuffed with letters, packages, cards, and had been there for over 2 years. So if you have something sitting up that's got some food in it for over 2 years, what happens? Yeah. Mice, roaches. Yeah, that's what happens. And they also had to contend with how many Robert Smiths are there in the world? How many John Browns? How many James Browns? And how many people get letters and it's addressed to your nickname? Yeah. That is what they also had to contend with. Now let's do the math. How much mail was that? This actually comes out of Charity Adams' book, One Woman's Army. She came up with a plan, 3 shifts, 7 days a week, around the clock. Each shift, first shift, second shift, third shift, processed 65,000 pieces of mail. I don't know about y'all, but today's post office, I don't think they do that well. Okay, just my thought. But 65,000 pieces of mail times 3 is 195,000 pieces of mail every single day. Now times that by 90. That is where you get the 17,500,000 pieces of mail, cards, packages. When they left Birmingham in 3 months, they went on to Rion, France, because Army leadership did not believe that they actually did that. Not these black women. They didn't do that by themselves. So they sent them to Rion, France. And again, what did they do? 3 shifts, 7 days a week, processed, redirected, got the mail out. Who commanded this unit? This lady, Major Charity Edna Adams, when she got married early. At the time, she was 26 years old. A major at 26, that's an accomplishment right there. She was born in North Carolina, grew up in South Carolina. She was one of the first African-American women to become an officer in the WAAC and then later the WAC. At the time, during World War II, she was the highest rankingest African-American woman in World War II. In her book, and I know many of you have heard this, she actually told a general, "Over my dead body." Yes, she did. And she did also fire the chaplain, but that's another story. There are two living members. Mrs. Fanny Griffith McClendon. She lives out in Tempe, Arizona. She is 104 years old, still lives by herself. And the youngest member is Mrs. Anna Mae Wilson Roberts, currently lives in Wisconsin. She will be 101 on March the 5th. This is Miss McClendon. When she left or transitioned out of the U.S. Army, she transferred to the Air Force because her husband was in the Air Force, and she retired from the U.S. Air Force as a major, and then after that started an anti-glass company, and she learned about anti-glass from her time in Birmingham, England. This is Mrs. Anna Mae Roberts. The photo that you see is her at 100, and that is me taking that photo of her. Like I said, she will celebrate her 101st birthday on March the 5th. It is her and 5 generations. Since I've been serving on the 6888 project, January of 2018, we've lost some members. This is Mrs. Romay Catherine Johnson Davis. She was originally from Virginia. She lived in Montgomery, Alabama. She was one of the members of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, which is now Dexter King Memorial Church, and that is the church where a young Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once preached. Yes, Miss Romay had a black belt at age 79. Yes, she was still driving. Yes, she was working at Winn-Dixie up until right before COVID. And she was a painter. This particular photo that you see was taken after we lost her in June of 2024. That is me standing at the exhibit Voices at the World War II Museum there in New Orleans. You can go and sit and actually have a conversation with Miss Romay. There are several others in that exhibit, but it kind of gave me closure because I was not able to attend her services. We lost Mrs. Gladys Blunt. Mrs. Blunt was from East Orange, New Jersey. She has a street named after her there in East Orange. We lost her on June 21st, or June 22nd, 2024, and she had just celebrated her 102nd birthday. We lost Mrs. Garcia. Mrs. Garcia was of Puerto Rican descent. She was a medic. She was assigned to the 6888 and then attached to a medical unit so that she could treat injured soldiers as they came in. This is Mrs. Maybelle Tanner Campbell. Mrs. Campbell was actually a guest right here at VACO in 2019. Mrs. Campbell was also on that ship, the Ile de France, and she remembered how rocky that ride was. If you look at the bottom photo, that is actually Mrs. Campbell. In the back seat, she is not piloting, okay? She is in the back seat of a World War II Boeing airplane. And she was like 97 when she took that ride. This is Miss Rudock, probably the one that I was the closest to. Miss Rudock, along with Miss Campbell, was also here in 2019. Miss Rudock is a Washingtonian, born and raised. Her church was right down the street, and she drove to it every Sunday. Miss Rudock's birthday was September 16th, and it is that day that is National 6888 Day. It's Miss Barker Johnson. Miss Barker Johnson learned to drive trucks at Fort Devon. While she was stationed in the 6888, she was one of the truck drivers that transported troops and all of that mail that you saw. And she did it at night because what was going on? A war. Miss Barker Johnson was also on that ship and remembered being on the Ile-de-France. She, in 2019, was the oldest living alumni of then Winston State College, which is now Winston State University. And in May of 2019, she walked across the stadium to pick up her diploma because she was not able to get it because she had a job right after she graduated. She had a career in teaching. Many of her students became teachers because of the inspiration that they got from Mrs. Johnson. This is Miss Millie Van Deese. I did not meet her. She was the one that told Mr. Philpott to build that monument. We lost her in March of 2018. She had an honor bestowed on her last month. She had the post office there in Raleigh to be renamed in her honor. This is Miss Hunt Martin. She is in that iconic photo of Charity Adams inspecting the troops. That is Private Hunt there. The photo next to her, next to that, is 2019 at her daughter's house, Janice. And Janice and I and Edna Cummins all lived in Maryland. On August 28th of 2023, Miss Hunt Martin had the Buffalo, New York post office in her neighborhood renamed in her honor. There are over 93,000 buried at the cemetery in Normandy. If you've ever been there, you've seen this site. Of that over 9,300, there are 4 that are women. 1 was a Red Cross worker. The other 3 belong to the 6888 Central Postal Directory Battalion. And we will not forget these women. Since 2016, the 6888 have gotten these awards. Now, when their tour was ending and they were leaving France, they all were shipped to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and given 3 choices. You can stay in the Army, you can transition out, you can transition to another service, but they did not get an award, did not get a thank you. It was like, see you. Some of the awards since 2016, they are Army Women Hall of Famers, class of 2016, and one of my classmates is here. She is in the class of 2022. A few years ago, you saw the documentary by our very own Jim Sayers. That is the documentary 6888. That was the one that I helped produce. Fort Lee, Virginia, in April of 2023, was renamed Fort Gregg Adams. We lost General Gregg back in August, and he was delighted to share the name with Lieutenant Colonel Adams. So she is the Adams there at Fort Gregg Adams. They also have a blue plate in Birmingham, England, where they actually was stationed. And they have a unit award down at the Army Museum. On March 22nd of 2022, or March 14th, President Joe Biden signed into law Public Law 11797. It gave the 6888 the Congressional Gold Medal. They also have a scholarship. The Army Women's Foundation manages that scholarship. You can go to Army Women's Foundation to find out more about it. And then on April 26th of 2024, the exhibit down at Fort Gregg Adams opened. In that exhibit, you have Mrs. Garcia's uniform, Mrs. Sales' uniform, Mrs. Campbell's pen. If you get a chance, go down and check it out. Did you see the movie? I did. I saw it 31 times so far, but I'm a little prejudiced. That movie tells the story of Mrs. Lena Delicott Bell King. It is her story of the 855 women. We lost Mrs. King last January at 109 days before her 101st birthday. This is the young lady that stars as Mrs. King, Ebony Overshone. She is there in the upper photo with Mrs. King. That's Mrs. King's 100th birthday. And then below, that is Ebony and I on the set of the 6888 there in Atlanta. As I close, I call for you to take action. You all have cell phones, recording devices. Talk to those older veterans and get their story. I will tell you that a lot of the 6888 children did not know that their mothers, aunts, cousins were in the service. Some of them knew they was in the service, but they didn't know what they did. Sit down, have a conversation with them. Go and find that Foot Locker that they have in the attic or the basement, because that's where they went. They came home, put all of that stuff away, and went on with life. Again, I thank you so much for letting me tell you just a few facts about the amazing women of the 6888 Central Postal Directory, and I challenge you to keep telling their story. My name is Elizabeth Ann Helm Frazier. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Master Sergeant, for your words, your impacts, highlighting the great work, celebrating and educating us on the 6888 Postal Battalion. And you're very, very right. I did not know that my grandmother was in the military until we had a conversation as an adult. And she was like, when I was in the Army, I said, wait a minute. You were in the Army? You got your VA benefits? She was like, no. So you have to talk to your those older people in your families. You find out all the family secrets. I am pleased to introduce and highlight a very impactful VA program that will be facilitated today by Tynesia Evans. Ms. Evans is a whole health coach, currently working with the Center for Minority Veterans as a communication and program coordinator for the Minority Veteran Program. I almost forgot to mention, she is currently in pursuit of her doctorate in functional and integrative medicine, specializing in trauma and healing processing. We are so proud of her and all her accomplishments. VA's whole health program shifts the focus from what's the matter with you to what matters to you. It is an approach that prioritizes mental, emotional, and physical health in a way that is personalized and empowering. To share more about this transformative approach, Please welcome Tynesia Evans.
Great morning, everyone. Thank you so much for that wonderful welcome. Just a few friendly reminders before we get started. Please adjust in your environment to your preferred wellness and comfort. Please feel free to prioritize your personal needs at this time, maintaining comfort and receptiveness in communal contribution. Please feel free to ask any questions or concerns at a later time during this presentation. A little bit about me. I am Tynesia Evans. I am a dedicated whole health coach here at VA Loma Linda. I'm excited to help our veterans create holistic lifestyle habits that are personally meaningful and are personally aligned for self-care and self-promotive lifestyles. So let's talk about a little bit of what the definition of mental health is. Mental health is a positive concept. It encompasses our emotions, our psyche, and our social interactions. So what you may not know is that there is a spectrum of mental health where the wellness exists on one part of the spectrum and discord or dis-ease can exist on the other part of the spectrum. And this will change at many times throughout our lives, depending on an individual's position and what they're experiencing. A few tenets that I love to teach in wholeness and whole health are balance, as opposed to understanding what works best for you individually, emotional, psychological, and social factors. And it's truly about creating harmony within an environment that exists only for you. So my balance will be different from your balance, and your balance will be different from the person sitting next to you. Well-being. Mental health is not just about the absence of mental illness, disease, or disorder, but an overall state of well-being where an individual can realize their own abilities and potentiality while coping with life stressors. So chronic stress. Chronic stress is a trigger, it's a cascade, it's a cumulative amount of things that can come at you. What happens is what we perceive in our brain, we also experience in our bodies. It can create discord with your vagal nerve, which is the longest nerve that's in your body, connects your brain directly to your digestive tract. Sometimes when you get an irritable tummy or when we feel butterflies, that actually starts in our brain and in our environments with what we're feeling and consuming that we may not be eating or may be eating. Nervous system and gut microbiome are heavily influenced upon our thoughts, experiences, and environments. These disruptions can lead to mood imbalances, digestive issues, systemic inflammation, which can lead to chronic fatigue. Mental health is more than just a state of mind. It's a state of being, an existence, an acknowledgement of how you truly would like to feel. 1 in 5 adults are experiencing a mental health concern within the past year or even at this moment. We all face significant mental health experiences, challenges, and often these can result in experiences with inside and outside of service. The Department of Veteran Affairs recognizes that many veterans are more susceptible to mental health conditions, and these can include depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorders, and substance abuse disorders. So let's talk about some empowerment. So mental health is integral, and it is highly personalized. When we're mentally healthy, we're able to take on the day, we're able to take on experiences, and we're able to learn, grow, and care for one another. Development of coping skills. Taking a deep breath is incredibly cleansing to the body, cleansing to the mind, and resetting to your vagal nerve. I bet you also didn't know that another way to reset yourself is to take a sip of water. When we have the process of bringing the water up to our face and taking it into our bodies, we're actually resetting our body's nervous system and interrupting the pattern that it may be in. So if you're feeling a bit anxious, take a sip of water. Embracing the 5 senses. I am so proud that VA has allowed our veterans to engage in this modality of health technology, which is aromatherapy. Aromatherapy has been found to increase relaxation, reduce anxiety, increase sleep and sleep hygiene, reduce queasiness, and also uplifting of your spirits or mental psyche. We all need these from time to time. There will be an opportunity for you to receive and sample while you're in this experience. And you can also request this service from your local whole health team. Being in touch with your thoughts and feelings. Oftentimes when we have thoughts, feelings, or emotions, we judge ourselves. I shouldn't feel that way. Let me change that. Let me stop focusing on it, right? And then we repeat it. But being in touch, being aligned with their thoughts and feelings, acknowledging them, realizing it is just a thought, it is just a feeling, taking the opportunity to kind of understand, where did this come from? Where did it exist? And why does it matter to me? Will be a great opportunity to increase and develop resilience and coping skills. So we're going to invite you. You have an opportunity right now to build a mindful practice. So I'd like you to invite you to take a moment, take a deep breath, get comfortable. I believe there may be an opportunity for you to experience the Eloquil aromatherapy tabs. You're going to take one. You're going to remove the plastic. You can either pick the highest tab or the lowest tab, depending on the strength of the aromatherapy you'd like to experience. You can either feel free to hold it to your nose or simply affix it to whatever you're wearing. These are safe for your skin. They're hypoallergenic as well if it gets on your skin. So we will begin by finding a comfortable sitting position in your chair with your feet solidly on the floor. This is a practice and act of grounding. It is allowing you to lower the frequency in your body to that of the earth. With your back tall but not stiff or uncomfortable, and your hands resting in your lap, I'd like to invite you to look at this screen. This is a visual aid of how I'd like you to reset your breathing. Whatever feels best for you, you can inhale on the expansion or exhale on the expansion, whatever feels best for you. Remember, this is your practice. I invite you to close your eyes or maintain affixed to our breathing prompt. Do whatever feels comfortable for you. Begin to pull your shoulders back. Allow your chest to rise and fall upon the inhale and exhale. Now notice the feeling of your feet on the ground. Allow yourself the opportunity to be upheld by the chair that you're sitting in or the ground that you're standing upon. Bring your attention to your body. Become aware of your breathing. This is truly our life's blood. As you're breathing in, you're oxygenating your cells, providing an opportunity for your mind to relax, choosing to be present in this room and in this experience. We're not only existing for ourselves, but we're contributing to a peaceful environment, even in the room that you're in now. If you'd like to experience what it feels like in your mind's eye, close your eyes and imagine yourself somewhere safe, peaceful, quiet, serene, whatever feels best for you. Once you've discovered a place that feels socially, physically, and mentally, emotionally, or spiritually safe, hold that in your mind's eye and continue to revisit your breath. Imagine that you're breathing in peace, serenity, health, kindness, and imagine that you're exhaling all that ails you. Breathing out the stress or the stressors of the morning, and breathing in the abundance, limitless joy that you would like to experience. On this next breath, I'd like for you to take a few more moments just to acknowledge how you're feeling, the best of how you're feeling. Gather that up and truly breathe it in deeply. Hold on to that and allow it to support you throughout the rest of your day. As I continue to move forward, you can maintain your practice or simply bring your attention back to the room. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me. Just a reminder, establishment of whole health services can be engaged in via secured messenger, simply requesting whole health support and whole health opportunities. This can include meditation, Tai Chi, yoga, aromatherapy, chiropractic care, massage therapy, EMDR, and so much more. We're dedicated to supporting you along your wellness journey. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me. And please feel free to reach out directly or via any of the connects that I provided during my part of this presentation. Have the best day ever.
Thank you so much, Ms. Evans, for sharing this very valuable VA program with our attendees today. Before we conclude today's program, I just wanted to mention something that Dr. Davis brought to my attention. As Chief Warrant Officer Mr. Burke, he spoke today, Dr. Davis advised me that they served together in the U.S. Navy at the Pentagon. So that connection that sometimes we don't know is there, that was pretty awesome, just hearing that today. But I just want to say thank you, and as we conclude today's program, I express my deepest thank you and thoughts and gratitude for the speakers today. Thank you, Master Sergeant. That was beautiful. I continue to learn something every time you do this presentation, and it's just really beautiful as we honor the women before us who paved the way for those of us who served in the military. So thank you for that. We thank you, Ms. Michelle Terry, for that beautiful rendition. It was really, really beautiful. So thank you so much. And Chief Warrant Officer Burke, thank you for continuing to share the dream with the young, well, they're kids to me because I'm of a certain age, but the fact that it's an opportunity for us to be engaged, to help others be engaged, and looking at different ways that we can continue to serve. So thank you so much. These stories today, I hope, have provided some insight and remind us of the contributions of African Americans in labor, whether in the workforce, service to our country, advocacy, and we just thank you for the fabric, all this being part of the fabric of our nation, but our work does not end here. We still have a lot of work to do, and we thank you. So today, as our call to action as Master Sergeant Helm Frazier said for the women of the 666-8 and getting those stories similar to that, let's continue to uplift and recognize the invaluable roles of all Americans today in every community and every corner of our country. On behalf of the Center for Minority Veterans, the Center for Women Veterans, and the Department of Veterans Affairs today, we thank you all for being a part of this conversation, and we give a special thanks to Dr. Davis for her support in lifting up this event today. Let's carry the momentum forward, and not just today, but in every day of our lives. And we just say thank you. We appreciate you all. Have a great day.